and welcome back to the TorontoWebsiteDeveloper.com. I am Peter Worski, the Toronto website developer specializing in Drupal. And in this video tutorial, I want to continue on with our 10-part video tutorial series on an introduction to PHP and move on to tutorial 5, looking at nested if statements, switch statements, and then simplified if statements. Before I do that, you'll see I'm on TorontoWebsiteDeveloper.com/store. Just going to draw your attention to the fact that you can purchase my video tutorial series. They're all available on the site for $20. It's a quick purchase, and your support goes to continuing to bring these Drupal video tutorials for you free at no charge. Additionally, you'll notice that when you buy multiple video tutorials, you'll save 10 or 20%. For those of you that have already gone ahead and purchased the tutorials, I greatly appreciate it. It means a lot to me for you to do that. As well, if you enjoy this video tutorial and helps you, please give it a thumbs up on YouTube or leave a comment. Let me know if it helped you out. Additionally, if you have questions, please feel free to use those comments. Let me know. Some people have started providing some direct messages to me on YouTube asking questions. I try to get to those, but I don't always have time. My preference is to provide a comment because then I can help a bunch of people at the same time. And if people have similar issues, they learn from each other. So again, use the comments, let me know. And as always, subscribe to the YouTube channel. I do track those analytics, and it helps to promote the video tutorials to other YouTube users. That said, let's get started. We're over at tutorial5.php. I'm going to open up my code here. One thing that you'll want to note from tutorial 4, I had tutorial 4 down here before. I'm now posting to tutorial 5, so I'm just making sure I'm in the same file. Quick recap. You'll remember if statements. Essentially the way they're structured: if some condition is true, then let's do something. Then we're going to have if some other condition is true, so else if some condition, let's do something. And then finally, if both of those conditions don't exist, let's just go ahead and do something by default. As well, you don't need an else if and you don't need else, right? You can just run just with an if statement. So that said, the reason why I was showing you that is because I want to show a nested if statement. I'm going to save this file. I'm going to go back over to my browser. I'm going to go to tutorial 5, and you'll see I get these undefined index errors on line 4 and line 6. And if I scroll back over here, I'm getting these because of this post. Post does not actually exist. And so that's a bit of a problem, because if a user is ever coming to this site and they want to check their number, they're going to get these undefined index errors. And that's the way that my PHP is set up on my server, but it's a good warning. So what I want to do is I want to check to see if this post variable is empty. Does number exist? So I can do that. And with that check being true, I can then run all of this different logic if the actual post number exists. And so that's a prime example of when we would use a nested if statement. So here's the function, or the syntax for that. I'm going to write an if statement. I'm going to open my bracket, and then down here, I'm going to close my bracket. I'm just going to indent this so you can see what's going on. And now you'll see that if I just hover over this, it identifies that here's the if statement opening and closing, and this code is inside of it. So now what will happen is it will check this condition, and if it's true, it will run all this code. If it's not true, it won't run the code. So what I'm going to do to check to see if this actually exists is use a PHP function called empty. So I'm going to use exclamation mark, which means not in PHP. So not empty, using the PHP function. Don't expect you to know this PHP function. Don't worry about it. You don't need to know it for the purpose of this, but just so you understand. Because it's a function, I've got to pass in an argument. And what I'm going to do is pass in post, and then I can save that. Now, if I go back to my site, and I go to tutorial 5 PHP, all those errors will get eliminated or disappear because of the fact that it's not going to run this code and try to evaluate post number if post is empty. And that's where we have a nested if statement. So what this looks like in kind of basic language is if some condition, right? And then inside of that, if some condition. And then so this if statement is replacing the do something, right? You remember before that it was if do something. That do something is now evaluating another if statement. And you can keep going with these as much as you want. I'm going to show you another example of one that we might want to do. It's going to be an ugly example, but I just want to do it because it's going to lead us into the switch statement that I'm going to show you. So I'm going to copy all of this code here and paste this. And I'll just line this up so you can see what's going on here. So here's our nested if. And what I'm also going to do is go a little bit crazier, and I'm going to say, check to see if, so I'm going to do 3 here. So add that in, my kind of 3 levels here. Right? So check to see if it's empty, check to see if the number is between 0 and 11, and then do all of this evaluation, right? And so let's save this, get an idea of what we're looking at here. If I'm in 2, I get my numbers 2, and if I'm at 15, I get nothing, right? 2 different evaluations. Check to see if post was empty, then check to see if it was between 0 and 11. In the last case, it wasn't, so it didn't execute any of this code. But if it is between 0 and 11, it executes all this code. Now, you'll see that I've gone ahead and I've gone if number is equal to 1, is it, do something. If it's equal to 2, do something. If. What I can do is I can replace that with what's called a switch statement. So I'm going to copy this code, paste it in. I'm going to walk you through what a switch statement is. So we can get rid of all of this. We're going to keep the is empty just so that we don't get ugly errors. I'm going to paste this. So you'll see here, I'm just going to line this up so you get an idea of what I'm looking at here. And this switch statement should actually be moved in, so it's all indented. And the reason why we indent is so that we understand that we're inside of different things, right? I know looking at this switch statement, I'm actually inside of this if statement because I've indented it properly. Now, the switch statement. The switch statement is essentially, it functions just like your if, else if, right? There's no real performance difference at the introductory PHP level, so don't worry about that. The reason why you want to do this is because you have a distinct value that could be passed in from your variable, and you know what that is. And so what you end up doing is you call a switch statement, pass in the variable that you're looking at, and then you define the different cases that this variable could come back with. So my first case happens to be case 1. That's the first value that I could get back, right? It could be case 1. And I could make this case 10 and then work backwards. That doesn't really matter. But the reason why I do case 1 is just what will end up happening with the switch statement is it'll go into this. It'll say, is the value 1? If it is, it will print this line, and then it will get out of the entire case, right? Or the entire switch statement. So case 1, the syntax is case, your value that you're evaluating, and then a colon, some code that you want to execute. And then this break statement means get out of the switch statement. Stop evaluating anything else. So if I know that my case is more likely to be 1, I want that to be at the top so that PHP doesn't have to evaluate a bunch of code to get what is most likely going to be the value that I receive. I know that's probably confusing, but we'll work through a couple other ones as well. So case 1, print this, then get out of the switch statement. If it's not case 1, it's then going to see, is it 2? Is the value 3? Is the value 4? Is it 5? Is it 6? Until it hits 1, and then it will execute that code. So let's go ahead and save this and take a look and see how this actually operates. So I'm going to go number 3. It's gone to see, is the value 1? No. Is value 2? No. Is value 3? Yes. Execute the code, get out of the switch statement. So it doesn't execute anything else, right? If I go to 2, same thing, number's 2. Now, you remember doing if statements. This would be similar to if, is it some value? No. Okay, else if, is it some value? No. Else if, else if, else if. And then you could end everything with else. Just a catch-all to say if it's not within these values that I'm anticipating, do this. Switch statement has the exact same thing, except it's called default. You provide default at the end of your switch statement because if you provide it before, it's just going to fall into default and then do it, stop evaluating. So if I put it after 7, it would never check 8, 9, or 10. Default's the exact same thing. Default, colon, some code you want to execute, and then the break. Now, one cool thing about the switch statements is you can have them fall into each other. So what I could do is take out this code for case 1, and I want case 1 and case 2 to do the same thing. So I'll change this to your number is 1 or 2. Save this, and now if I go back to my site, just go to my page, go to 1, your number is either 1 or 2. Go to 2, your number is either 1 or 2. Go to 3, and obviously it operates the same way. But that's where you can get multiple cases to do the same thing, right? And so typically what this would look like if it were an if statement is it would be if the value is equal to 1 or the value is equal to 2, do this. This is just a little bit of a cleaner way to do that. And again, you're not going to see a big difference between, your introductory PHP doing this or your if else if. So use whichever one is cleaner and more intuitive to you. I just want you to understand what they both look like. Last thing I'm going to run you through very quickly is this conditional one-line if statement. And sure enough, I've lost it. So we'll go ahead and print it out ourselves. What I'd like to do here is I'm going to print your number is, and then I'm going to concatenate that with some statement. And so what I want to do is evaluate and tell the user your number is greater than 10 or your number is less than 10. So what I do here is post underscore number greater than 10. We're going to say greater than 10. And don't worry, I'm going to walk you through this code and explain exactly what I'm doing. Let's save this. And now if I go back to my site, I'm going to enter in 10. Your number is less than 10, which is not entirely correct. But 9, your number is less than 10. Go to 11, your number is greater than 10, right? And so what this allows us to do, this code right here, is just a one-line short form if statement. So we have our condition here. Is the post greater than 10? If it is, tell it it's greater than 10. If it's not, tell it it's less than 10. And you denote those different options between a question mark. So question mark, the condition evaluates to true, do this. Colon, the expression evaluates to false, do this. Again, you typically are only going to use this when you have a very simple if statement, you're evaluating some condition, and you're returning something very simple, some code to execute. You don't want to do overly complex things here because it's going to get ugly and it's not going to be easy to maintain. I'm only showing you this because as we get into Drupal development, or you're looking at any code for Drupal or any PHP, if you're just watching this for PHP, you might see these, wonder what the heck is going on, and they're short form if statements. It's a little bit cleaner. I think these actually might be against the Drupal coding conventions, but anyways, that's neither here nor there. So that wraps up this video tutorial. If this helped you, please leave a comment, let me know. Always appreciate hearing back from you. As always, thumbs up, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and if you'd like to purchase one of the video tutorial series that I have on my site, please head over to TorontoWebsiteDeveloper.com/store. We'll see you for the next video tutorial. Thanks very much for watching.